Hello, my friends. AmyR here with Prairie Paper and Ink. Welcome back to my face and my card making space. And welcome to the first holiday card video for my 2023 holiday Christmas card series. What I've been saying I was going to start it for weeks, honestly, and wasn't planning on starting it right now, but I just many things on my plate behind the scenes. So it's a good thing that I'm participating in a blog hop for Pretty Pink Posh for their October release, which is holiday, all of it is holiday products. It is a monster size release. It's fabulous. Seriously, I have been struggling. I want to make 5 million cards. There will be more videos coming. Yeah, I, of course, and you can tell by the title of the thumbnail, I went with the new holiday mug editions. If you're not aware, and I will have a link to my playlist because last year, was it last year? I think it was just last year. You got, sense of time. Anyway, the very first set Pretty Pink Posh did was the winter mug little die set. And I remember buying that with like the majority of the holiday release last year because it's always fabulous. Anyway, that one came out, and then in subsequent releases over the last year, I do think it's only been a year. Again, my sense of time is just blurry. There have been many add-ons, which I have mentioned. I love when a brand releases either it's a stamp set or a die set or whatever, and then down the road they have little add-on sets for different themes and things and all of that. It just, more ideas, more creativity, and ways to like keep reusing the original set and then little add-ons. So over the year there have been like graduation and get well and birthday and Easter and just so many things. I will have a link to a list with all of them. Along with these, these are from Simon Says Stamp. I just keep the whole set of them all just in one so I can just grab it and I know I have all the add-ons because, you know, a lot of times I mix and match. Anyway, with this release is now the holiday mug editions. So, of course, I went with that. And I only use some of the dies. Like, you can build a cute little deer. It's adorable, a little Santa face, all the things. I kept it somewhat simple and then also went like nuts with like splatter and adding texture with a sea sponge, which I will also mention before I get into card making. I got these. I don't have a link for them. They're just sea sponges. I will show in the video. I was just dabbing them in ink, but I don't have a link for them, but I think they're fairly easy to find at like craft stores, things like that. But yeah, they're just little sea sponges and they're fun for adding texture. Painters and all that have been using these for eons, you know? So I pulled out those and yeah, like always, when it comes to any sort of series or playlist that I do, they're going to be all over the place. They're not scheduled. The only thing I have been able to stick to a schedule with is my lives, which are 2 p.m. CST on Sundays. That's the only schedule I can stick to. Everything else is chaotic. I'm still doing Halloween cards. There's just going to be all over the place. But that's why I do playlists. So as I, you know, make holiday cards this season, they will continue to get added to the playlist, which will then be linked in videos. That's how I keep somewhat organized. So I think that's enough blabber. Oh, and I will have a link to all the new Pretty Pink Posh products along with the supplies I used. But I'll have a link to the new release in the description box below the video, as well as the links to my blog post, the supplies I use, etc. That is always in the description box directly below the video. So I'll have that as well. And yeah, let's get into the card making. So like I tend to do more often than not is I do my die cutting before I even bother to start filming because it's redundant and kind of boring to watch. So I did a little die cutting spree. Die cutting, just I had a rough idea in my head, you know, what I wanted to use because like I said, I didn't use all of the dies from the holiday mug editions, and I'm combining them with the original winter mugs, which has the wafer die, which you can see there, the mug and the little kind of oval shape for the liquid. And I'm also actually using a few other dies from that set. There's a little snowflake and a candy cane, a little set of candy canes. So I use those as well. And then all the other elements are from the new holiday mug editions. So I did all my die cutting, and I put most of the pieces. I just use my little triangle trays to hold, especially when it's like little die cut pieces. That keeps me somewhat organized because yeah, when I'm making like multiples, so in this case I made 2 cards because it's like, well, and I've got all the supplies out and I'm doing especially a bunch of die cutting. It's just easy for me to do more than one because it's like, oh, I'm running, the plates through my die cut machine anyway. Might as well throw on a few more scraps of cardstock and do all my die cutting. So assembling everything was super, super basic. There wasn't really anything, at least not for what I did today, that needs explanation. It, like I've mentioned before with the Pretty Pink Posh dies specifically, all of them are connected if they're meant to go together. Like the little like peppermint dies there that I have in the tray already, they're connected. So the pinwheel portion and then the base, it's one wafer die in a sense. So I like that. Yes, you do have to like run it through your machine more than once, to get different colors. However, it keeps, the dies are connected. So it's like, okay, this piece goes with this piece. Less thinking for me is good. So that's just what I do. And then, yeah, I use all my scraps or use up a lot of my scraps. I keep pretty much all sizes of scraps. I've mentioned this in other videos. I keep pretty much all my cardstock scraps because I use them, for all little pieces like this, little die cuts, little die cut embellishments, all those sorts of things. Like they get used up. So, yeah, I just went through and just worked on each different types. So I did, all the little peppermints. Now I'm working on these little candy canes. I decided to do, a traditional set, red and white. And then I did these ones like pink raspberry because I know those actually exist. I get those usually, during the holidays because like you can't go wrong with pink candy canes. Seriously. So adhered all the pieces. I was using just craft tacky glue. That little bottle is a Gina K precision tip bottle. I've shown this in a ton of videos. I just have craft tacky glue in it because I've been using this glue for years. It works. Gina K glue works great too. There are many good liquid glues. Use what works for you. I use the craft tacky stuff. So I use that for my fine little details, especially ones like this Mary script wafer die. I die cut that from some light pink cardstock. I only did 2 layers. Shocking, I know. Usually I do like a minimum of 3, but I knew also because I've done many of these like mug cards, I knew there was going to be a fair bit of dimension just with the layers of like cardstock die cuts. So I was like, nope, 2 is good. 2 is great. That's all I need. So I adhered those together and then thought I would show this. Normally, like this doesn't bother me at all. With some die cuts, and depending on the pressure your die cut machine, you can see all the little bumps on the cardstock. I use a Spellbinders Platinum 6, and it has quite a bit of pressure, which is great because, detailed die cuts, etc. It just cuts through, whatever substrate I'm using, cardstock, watercolor paper, etc. It die cuts them like butter. However, because there is so much pressure with wafer dies, they have the little release holes through them. And ones like these that have very finicky things like a scripty font, there's many release holes and that can sometimes get pressed into the cardstock. And like I said, I generally don't care. It doesn't really faze me. However, if it does bother you, you can do what I'm showing here on screen. I'm just using my Teflon bone folder and basically burnishing the cardstock, and that kind of presses out those little bumps. So it also helps if you've layered, especially if you're working with a finicky die cut like this that's got, it's a little narrow. It would be easy to tear this if you're being rough with it. Because there's 2 layers glued together, this gives it a bit more strength. And I'm not using a ton of pressure. I'm just using my Teflon bone folder and just gently rubbing over the top of this die cut. And it's helping to press out those little bumps. And you can try this too with specialty cardstock. That's where it really shows up, like the metallics and whatnot. And if you want to skip that altogether, one, so you can skip it, or you could die cut glitter cardstock, and then you can't really see it at all because it just hides everything. So I did all of that. And then the sea sponge. I just got it in my head. I haven't thought about this in the longest time, and some of you might know exactly what I'm talking about. You know those little sets of dishes you can get for camping? So random. But you know, they're enamel coated, and I think they're made out of metal, but they're enamel coated and they're blue. I've never seen them in any other color but blue, but they've got like this mottled colorway to them with like texture, and they're blue, and I don't know why. I've always like wanted a set, but we haven't gone camping in eons, so there's no point. But anyway, I was thinking about that and I was like, I wonder if I could recreate that on these red die cut mugs. So why not? So that's what I did. I took my little sea sponge and I started with aged mahogany distress oxide ink, which is hard to see on camera, but as it dries, the oxide kind of lightens a little bit. And then I also used black soot. You could try other types of sponges, other things to get texture. You could splatter as well. It's not the same, but it does give a texture. But the sea sponge gives a really fun texture. And credit for this idea totally goes to Dawn Woolslagel. She's Dawn+9 on YouTube. I've mentioned her many times. I love her videos. I get so many ideas from her. And I've already told her flat out. I messaged her and I was like, you cost me so much money. Because I go and order all the random things she uses, and I'm like, I need this in my life. So I got the sea sponges because she did a video using them, and I was like, oh, that's the texture I was looking for certain things. There have been times where there's, a certain idea in my head, and I was like, why did I not think of a sea sponge? So on those mugs, I had done aged mahogany, black soot, and I also did some white pigment ink. So I just tapped the sponge and the ink, tapped it onto the little die cut mugs, and then set those aside. And then, as I tend to do all the time, for my backgrounds, I'm using one of the Pretty Pink Posh stencil sets. This is just a single stencil. There's also like a bunch of layering stencil sets, of course, that are fabulous. But I really liked this one. This is the Winter Words set. And I don't know, it's so cute. So I used it with picked raspberry oxide ink on Nina Desert Storm cardstock, another favorite of mine. There's something about oxide inks on Desert Storm cardstock that just makes me happy. And I was working on my waffle flower grip mats because that's just another thing that I love. Do you need multiples of them? No. It makes my life more convenient. So I use one to hold the card front and the other one's holding the card base. And I'm just using one of my Picket Fence paper pouncers to pounce the ink onto the Desert Storm cardstock over the stencil. And then onto the card base, I did basically the same thing. Usually I don't use as much pressure and make it much lighter, but I ended up going a little heavier handed this time just to make sure I actually got all the words like stenciled onto the inside of the card. And I'm fine with it because I'll write to the recipient with like a black pen over top of it. Like I always say, on the insides of my cards, it's just bonus. Whatever I put on there, whether it's stenciling, stamping, pattern paper, all the random little things I'll put on the insides of the cards, it's either just extra or it's with the intention of me writing directly over it. Because, the card front is the card front. The inside is where you write something. So I just like adding things to the insides of my cards because they just don't feel finished until I do. It's something I've done for decades, literally decades now. So yeah, I can't finish a card, or at least in my mind, my card's not done until there's something, even if it's just a little stamp sentiment. It can be simple. And then other times I go absolutely all out and create an entire scene on the inside of my cards. Again, just depends on my mood. So after I did the stenciling, I cut down the Desert Storm panels. And I also used the new Eyelet rectangles wafer dies. I used the largest one with the light pink cardstock. So that's my frame. Adhered them together and then heavily splattered them with some white gouache that I mixed with a little bit of water just to thin it out. I used my fan brush and went to town on the splatter. I've told you guys, Christmas cards are coming. Do I need an excuse for splattering? No. But with Christmas cards, it's like bonus extra splatter time because, snow. But again, I will justify that in any way because I've yet to, really think there's too much. So after I did that, let that dry, I assembled my little mugs in the new holiday mug editions. There's the little band and this buckle obviously. Super cute. So I went with that. Got those adhered. The buckle I die cut just from scraps of some matte gold cardstock, so it gives a little shine. And I'd done that with the little trees that are going to get stuck in the mugs as well. I did the little picks or sticks for the trees of the scraps of the gold as well. And pulled out my reverse tweezers. I have multiple pairs of these. These are something I've mentioned many, many times. I use them when I'm tying bows, etc. It's also good to have multiple pairs because these do more than all my other supplies. I swear, reverse tweezers grow legs when you're not looking and they walk off all the time. I have so many pairs, but they come in handy. They're also extra fingers. So I've been using them more and more to hold things in place, like to pinch everything closed to let, to give the glue a few extra seconds, a minute, whatever to dry. And they can do their job while I'm going on to the next thing. So that's also a nice handy thing of having multiple pairs. So I just did, all of my assembling, stuck the candy canes and those little trees into the mugs, stuck the one little sprig into there as well. I'd used the little snowflake die from the original Winter Mugs die set and die cut that from scraps of white cardstock, and then just kind of adhered everything all over these stenciled and splattered card fronts, and just kind of going back and forth between, where's the mug going to be, and then, where do I want to tuck this, etc. So once I kind of had the layouts figured out, then I'm going to adhere the mugs into place. And again, I'm using craft tacky glue for everything. I didn't use any foam dimension, nothing like that. You totally can, I do that more with cards that I specifically intend to hand deliver, because something like, I don't mind dimension. I love it. But when I'm mailing out like a whole bunch of Christmas cards, I generally dial back the dimension a little bit, because once they get too thick, it just gets to be a little bit annoying. I don't mind it again when it's like 1 or 2 cards here and there. You're sending it out to someone. Yeah, extra postage, or stick it in a bubble mailer or one of those rigid chipboard type mailers. That works great too to protect it. That also helps with like shaker cards, etc. So it's fine, but when I'm mailing out like a ton, I usually try and dial back the dimension a little bit. Anywho, got everything adhered, and then pulled out my white gel pen and used that to add just little dots, little highlights, little lines all over these die cut pieces. That's another way to add just that extra little bit of something, again, without creating any bulk or anything like that. And it just, especially if you're doing like just plain cardstock die cuts, this just helps add that little extra something. So I just went along and added wherever I thought it needed. So basically mostly just like all the solid little cardstock die cut areas, the little Santa hat, the belt, the mug, etc. So just went along with, this is my Jelly Roll 10 gel pen. And then I also pulled out the sentiment strips, the Christmas clear sentiment strips Christmas from Pretty Pink Posh, and just this scrap of mint cardstock. I used my anti-static powder tool on it, and I stamped the Merry Christmas sentiment from this little set with clear embossing ink, coated it with Simon's detail white or detail gold embossing powder. Gonna melt that with my heat tool till everything is smooth and melted. I could have just omitted the word Merry on the sentiment, but I thought it was kind of cute because it'll be the scripty font, so it'll say Merry Christmas, So yeah, could have just skipped off with the word Merry and just have it say Merry Christmas, but yeah, can't say it too many times as far as I'm concerned. I thought it was cute. So I trimmed those down after I had heat embossed them, and then adhered the die cut sentiments just right across that mug, and then tucked in the little stamped and heat embossed sentiment right below that. And then once I've got these adhered into place, I'm going to adhere these to my card bases. And those card bases were top folding A2 white note cards. So these are 4 1/4 by 5.5 inch note cards. And after I got the sentiments adhered, I'm going to pop these card fronts right onto those card bases. And I decided not to add any bling. I know, but I kind of got a lot going on these cards. All the little die cut elements, tons of splatter, the little bits of gold here and there. The texture I decided to add to the mugs with the sea sponges, they're busy. They are busy card fronts. They're fun. Could you tuck in some bling? Totally could, but I decided for once not to. Will I make up for it in future videos? Oh yeah, you know I will. So like I mentioned though in the intro, this is part of a blog hop. I will have a link to my blog post in the description box below the video. Definitely worth checking out because I'll link to the other hoppers. There's multiple days of hops because like I said, this is a big release. There's tons of inspiration, like so many fabulous makers making all kinds of amazing things. So it is very much worth checking out. So I will have links to that below, as well as, like I said, the release, all the products I used, etc. That'll be in the description box below the video. Thank you all so very much for watching, thumbs upping, commenting, subscribe if you haven't. I'd love to have you. And I'll see you all very soon in the next one. Bye.